Conspiracy theories. We all either love them or love laughing at them. So tonight we're going to be diving into one conspiracy theory from every year, 2000 to 2024. So sit back, relax, and let's step into the darkness. Before we get into the topics, I just wanted to thank you for clicking on the video. If you enjoy, a like and subscribe would mean the world, but without further ado, let's get into the video. 2000. The Smiley Face Killers. The Smiley Face Killers theory is probably one that you've heard of because by this point it's pretty widespread. It was first brought forward by retired New York City detectives, two people called Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duart. And the theory claims that the deaths of 45 young men across America that were ruled as accidental drownings were actually killings. In each case, there was graffiti of a smiley face near the location of where each man was found. Although this didn't convince all law enforcement officers, it was enough to convince the two detectives that something was up. They also noted that, although the victims weren't directly connected to each other, they were all found passed away after leaving parties or bars while under the influence of alcohol. All of them were popular, athletic, and successful students as well. So they all fit a certain profile that made the pair of detectives think that if there was a group, then they were certainly preying on one type of profile. But forces around the USA who had investigated the cases firsthand disputed this theory, saying that they didn't believe the cases to be connected at all and that the graffiti was simply a coincidence. Professional psychologists and other people working in the industry also dispute the theory, saying that it's unlikely that this was serial killers. The reasoning being because everything we know about the psychology and other things about serial killers would match up to these alleged smiley face killers. The FBI even spoke out and said that they had reviewed the evidence but that there wasn't anything substantial that could back it up. So everyone apart from these two detectives thought that these men had accidentally drowned after drinking too much alcohol. But that hasn't stopped the theory from spreading far and wide because it's still spoken about to this day. The likelihood of this being true though is probably very low. Some people love to be independent when they're drunk, and some people won't even realise how much danger they're in if they put themselves in that type of situation. All it takes is one slip and suddenly you're in the water, completely helpless. And the idea that random smiley face graffiti is connected is pretty unsubstantial because surely that is one of the most common types of graffiti out there. I know that I see it about all the time, so unless there was actual reason to believe that it was put there recently, then I can see why it was brushed off. But let me know what you think in the comments. 2001. Pop culture predicts real-life events. This conspiracy says that popular TV shows, films, and even music can purposefully predict future events. People argue that if they do, then it isn't simply a coincidence, but rather a plot developed by writers who know more than they want to let on, or by government tampering to almost normalize upcoming disturbing events. One of the most well-known examples of this is this screenshot from The Simpsons that allegedly predicts 9/11. The episode aired in 1997, and there is a magazine promoting a trip to New York. It has a $9 price tag, and the Twin Towers are in the background, placed near to the 9, so it almost looks like it reads 9/11. This isn't the only time that The Simpsons has predicted real-life events either, because they're actually quite well known for it. In the episode Bart to the Future, where, you guessed it, Bart Simpson travels to the future, his sister Lisa has become the president of the USA. She tells him that she became the president after Donald Trump had his term in office. This episode was released in 2000, and that maniac would have his first term in 2016, followed by an ongoing second one when he was elected in 2024. The showrunner of The Simpsons has even came out to say that he and his team do not have the ability to predict the future. He said that it's a mix of luck and also because of the sheer amount of episodes that they have actually produced. He put it as, if you write 700 episodes and you don't get a single prediction right, then you're pretty bad, but you're bound to get a few bullseyes if you do. Some people don't believe it's luck though, and rather believe that Hollywood is shaped by the government and the military. Conspiracists think that they have an extreme influence over the scripts, and that they will secretly use the media to push certain narratives. They think that the elites of the world are secretly revealing their plans to the public, so that when it eventually happens, we'll see it as inevitable and unsurprising. So what do you think? Is this all simply coincidence, or is it part of a bigger agenda? 2002. chemtrails are government plots. What if I told you that the government are secretly spraying chemicals into the atmosphere? Well, that's what the chemtrails conspiracy would lead you to believe. Condensation trails, also known as contrails, are what some people think are actually chemtrails. Contrails occur when the hot exhaust of a plane mixes with cold air. But conspiracy theorists believe that instead of simply being a chemical reaction, they're actually actual chemicals being released into the world. They think that chemtrails are part of some global conspiracy, as this happens in almost every country. Governments around the world are apparently using these chemtrails to control weather patterns, once dispersed they'll be able to control storms, tsunamis, or even earthquakes. This could then be used as some sort of weapon of war towards those who may have a disagreement with the home nation. But if you don't believe the weather theory, you may believe the mass mind control. Yes, because some people believe that rather than simply affecting the weather, the government are actually using it to mind control us and make us more obedient. Some people have genuinely linked chemicals to ADHD, autism, and even depression. This is among many other forms of mental illness, and they say that by making people rely on medication and therapy, then they're more tied to the government. And finally, some people believe that chemtrails can be used to just generally experiment on your citizens, or to even spread diseases. They claim that chemtrails spread viruses and such things to test the effects of it on the population. They link the increase in certain cancers and other things, such as certain respiratory diseases, to the unleashing of chemicals. Some of the evidence they use to back up their claims is that the chemtrails don't actually match any flight path. Some people have claimed to capture videos of these trails spreading in the sky and almost blocking out sunlight before they finally fall down to Earth. Others rely on leaked information from former government or airline employees who claim that they have actually seen these chemical tanks installed on aircrafts. There are also rumours about a secret government project about chemical dispersion through aircraft, though there is no evidence to back up that this actually exists. The evidence against it is much stronger. There is no evidence of mass chemical spraying on the general population regularly, and even the videos of the lingering alleged chemtrails can be explained away. This is likely to happen depending on the different conditions of the atmosphere among various other factors. However, people who buy into this theory will always be convinced that it is true, and anyone who doesn't believe it are simply on the government's side, because that's what would happen if it really were true. 2003, the ninth planet. For years, people have debated the existence of a ninth planet that will eventually cause destruction on planet Earth. I can already tell that some of you are going to bully me for how I say Earth. Forgive me, I'm Scottish. The planet, dubbed Planet X by conspiracy theorists, is allegedly massive, even bigger than Earth or any of the planets in our solar system. And apparently, it's on direct collision course with our home. The idea comes from an old theory using ancient text as evidence, that a gigantic planet orbits our sun every 3,600 years. People believe three theories: that the planet is going to collide with us, that it is home to an alien race that is secretly manipulating us all, or that it causes mass extinction events whenever it comes near our planet. Some astronomers do believe that this planet exists though, but just that it's not waiting to kill us all. Evidence has been discovered that there is one out there not too far away, but people who buy into the overall conspiracy believe that making us think that the ninth planet isn't actually dangerous is all part of the master plan. They think that the government know more about this mysterious planet than they are letting on, and that it may actually be responsible for climate change. Others believe that it's actually where the elites of the world would fly off to if something bad were to happen on Earth, almost as some sort of space sanctuary. They claim that this is why billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are so obsessed with space travel, so that they can eventually get off of this Earth should Planet 9 cause a disaster. The likelihood of the planet existing is not zero. Some scientists remain cautiously optimistic that it does exist, but even if it does, the chances of it being directly responsible for the death of this planet is very low. I personally want to believe it's out there, so hopefully one day we will know for sure. 2004, the moon is a hologram. One of the most persistent theories over the years is that that thing that we see in the sky every night is not actually real, but is rather a projection that we see for different reasons. Theorists argue that the moon itself is too perfect, that its size, its design, it's all too good to just be out there in space. They argue that the moon doesn't spin like other masses outside our atmosphere and that it only shows one side of its face. This is one of the main arguments used to back up that it is nothing more than a projection. Going into that further, people argue that the surface of the moon looks far too artificial. It doesn't look like it would if it was just out there, but rather it looks like it has been meticulously designed and then backlit to fool us all. Some of the more extreme people who believe this theory even believe that the reason it's there is to hide the ninth planet, or even an alien spaceship that is always orbiting Earth. Others in the same mindset believe that, through reading ancient text, that the moon hasn't always existed, and it's like it was just switched on at some point in the timeline. They claim that some of these old readings describe a time where the moon didn't exist, but obviously that's not really solid evidence. This also adds on to an older theory that the moon landing was faked by NASA. They can't land on something that isn't real. So the argument is that not only was it staged, but it was also part of the big cover-up of the moon being a hologram. And this is part of the bigger argument that the elites know that the moon is fake. The reason they keep the illusion up is because if we were to know that it wasn't real, then we might start to question what else isn't really a reality. 2005 Tsunami Weapons. This theory is actually believed more than you may think, but it relates back to the whole idea that the government can control the weather. It's believed that many governments around the world and military organisations that we may not even know about have the power to create destructive, massive tsunamis at will. The idea is that it can be used for population control or even for war reasons. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami is one of the deadliest to have ever occurred. It claimed the lives of 228,000 people across 15 countries, but some people believe that it was engineered to test a tsunami bomb or was even the result of an underwater nuclear explosion. The tsunami struck on December 26, 2004, and some people thought that this was too perfectly timed to be natural. At a time when most of the world was distracted by the holiday season, a lot of people were thinking that this would have been the perfect time for a secret experiment. There is also the argument that the alleged magnitude of the earthquake that caused the tsunami was very unnatural for the area. They use this to back up the theory that it was actually an underwater nuclear test that caused the insane seismic activity, and they also claim that the force and even the scale of these waves were not like those that would have been caused by an earthquake, but rather an explosion. Theorists believe that the foreign aid that was given to these countries by places like America after the tsunami was an excuse for Western countries to gain political and financial influence over these countries. It was almost like a pawn that could be used for economic control. Of course, that's just a theory, but the alleged testing of tsunami weapons dates as far back as 1940. Back during World War II, the USA and New Zealand were working on Project SEAL, where the aim was to develop a tsunami bomb. The goal was to create a tidal wave that could be used to destroy coastal cities and military encampments. Through work in the project, it was discovered that it was possible to make one, but it was never actually deployed, at least officially. And this has led some people to believe that some of the tsunamis we've seen over history have not been natural, but rather warfare. 2006, Skittles were created by Big Pharma. Skittles are known throughout the world for their delicious taste, but what if I told you that they were actually made to get people hooked on pills? Theories go that Skittles were actually created as a plot by Big Pharma to get people, especially children, addicted to the idea that it was good and normal to consume things that were shaped like capsules. Their slogan of "Taste the Rainbow" has been interpreted as some sort of subliminal messaging to encourage the consumption of colourful chemicals and pills. Skittles are trying to condition their customers and their children all over the world to associate bright colours with something that's safe. Although Skittles were first created in Britain in the 1970s, they started to hit America at the end of that decade. Big Pharma was in its heyday at this point, and some theorists argue that the reason Skittles was brought over to the US was so that it could be used as a testing ground for delivery of chemicals or even just manipulation. But if you don't believe that Skittles are used by Big Pharma, then you may be part of the other group of people who believe that it's used to push certain agendas. There are theories that there are chemicals in the candy that can cause changes to your gender or your sexuality, which in turn causes a shift in society. There is no evidence that this is true, obviously. Skittles were created by a British candy and gum manufacturer who has absolutely no connection to any pharmaceutical companies. They have always been focused on making sweets, not drugs. Their slogan being manipulative is also kind of false because it's mainly used to distinguish Skittles from other candy. All slogans are manipulative by nature because they need to find a way to stick in your mind, but it's certainly not trying to manipulate us to do anything, and it's not part of some secret agenda. And the idea that Skittles can make you gay is mental. So mental that I actually love it, and I don't even think I need to explain to you why this one's false. So while this may be a fun little conspiracy to talk about, it's certainly more tinfoil than truth. 2007, Flat Earth. Despite the overwhelming amount of evidence that the Earth is round, there are a lot of people out there who genuinely believe with every inch of their soul that the Earth is flat. Instead of a sphere, flat earthers believe that the Earth is actually more disc-shaped, with the North Pole at the centre and Antarctica as a massive ice wall around the border to keep everything from falling out. They believe that the sky surrounds the flat Earth to keep anyone from escaping, and that the sun, the moon, and all the stars in the night sky are simply lights moving in fixed patterns to give the illusion of space. This again ties back to the idea that the moon and the moon landing was fake. Some flat earthers also believe that the moon is a hologram, with an overwhelming majority believing that the moon landing was fake. Through CGI and green screens, they think that space exploration has always been false, and that we don't really know what the shape of our planet actually is. Even though there is photographic evidence that the Earth is round, they think that these were photoshopped by NASA, and they take any sort of inconsistency as proof that they are nothing but fakes. The Antarctica Treaty is also part of this theory. It was signed in 1959 and protects the region for scientific research and peaceful purposes. Because of this and also the harsh conditions, we can't explore it. And people think that this is really to prevent people from finding the ice wall that would reveal the end of the world. They also say that if anyone were to find it, then they would be swiftly dealt with, because there are apparently government forces patrolling the ice wall. Many people who believe this theory already don't trust the government or scientists, so when scientists and other professionals say that the Earth is round, they're bound to not believe it. Because they're in echo chambers like Facebook groups and other sides of social media, these conspiracies can spread like wildfire. They simply serve as a place where their beliefs can be reinforced without any arguments. There isn't really a lot of science to back up that the Earth is flat, and that's because the whole theory is built on government control. It has been debunked many times, but theorists who buy into it will always believe it, because they want to believe that they have figured out something that no one else has. 2008, Denver Airport as an Illuminati base. Denver Airport has been a topic of discussion in conspiracy circles for many years, and for good reason. One step into the airport and you'll immediately notice strange murals that depict very weird things. One of the weirdest is a 32-foot statue of a horse that is dubbed Lucifer, with demon eyes and a bulky build, and the fact that its owner actually died during construction of the horse itself is very out of place in an airport and can certainly disturb you. There is also a marker at the south entrance of the airport that hints at the existence of a secret society. There are other murals that depict symbols of the Freemasons, among other things like strange gargoyles and paintings. And the reason that this is also blatantly on display? Because they're embracing it. Nowadays, you'll see signs joking about a lizard construction worker drilling in an underground base. They've purposefully joked about the fact that the Illuminati runs the airport, but some think that by by them embracing it, that's their way of continuing to control us all right under our noses. I mean that literally, because there is a massive underground network of tunnels that run under the airport. There is a train that runs between the concourses and even an old automated baggage system that was left there when it was abandoned. But people think that the tunnels are hiding the secret entrance to the Illuminati bunker that could be used by the elites of the world or even aliens. The airport is the largest in the US, so there is certainly room for secrets. The baggage system that I just mentioned was shut down after it failed to work properly, but that was the original intent of the underground network. Some argue though that the failure was done on purpose, so we then wouldn't suspect what was actually going on underground. Evidence to back this up is that the airport cost almost $5 billion to build. That was $2 billion over the original budget, and this has led many people to wonder where the extra money actually went. And it's a pretty good question. The airport remains as one of the busiest in the world, and although it certainly is a bit strange, there is no evidence that it is actually home to a secret society. But with how vast the underground area is, I suppose we'll never know for sure. And the theory will always be alive because of that. But what do you think? Is Denver Airport really hiding a dark secret? Or is it just a strangely designed building? 2009 Swine Flu Vaccine. When swine flu broke out in 2009, it spread quickly across the world. A vaccine was developed, but unsurprisingly, people doubted that it was actually real. The first theory was that it was used as population control. The theory claimed that people like the World Health Organization were purposefully including ingredients that would reduce fertility, and then they would give this version of the vaccine to people in developing countries so that they would not be able to reproduce. But for those in countries like America, people thought that the vaccine actually may be used to track you. They believed that the vaccine contained early versions of microchips that were being tested to see if they would work. Part of the test was also to figure out how long they would survive inside of the human body. Theorists claimed that they would do this again in the future if their initial test worked, and urged people not to get vaccinated. There was also the argument that the vaccine was rushed and could potentially be dangerous, but people were still lining up to get it as conspiracists screamed out about the potential risks. People continue to believe this because of how quickly the pandemic was taken out. It lasted for a little over a year, and Big Pharma made a crazy profit off of the vaccines, a large percentage of which actually went unused during the vaccination process. But there is a lot of evidence to debunk this theory as well. No evidence has ever been brought forward to support the idea that there were dangerous ingredients that could affect fertility. In addition, no technology that would make it possible to fit a microchip into something like an injectable liquid exists now, and it certainly didn't at the time. 2010 Area 51 hiding alien life. Area 51. We all know about it and the theories are extremely interesting. This is one of the conspiracies I love the most. I've always been interested in Area 51. Located in the Nevada desert, this military base belonging to the US government has been speculated for decades to hold evidence of extraterrestrial life. The government insists that this base is simply used as a testing site for new technology, but theorists still believe that it's actually hiding UFOs. One of the longest lasting theories is that Area 51 is actually home to living aliens. They apparently experiment on them and pry their brain on how to replicate their tech. One man spoke out in the 80s and claimed that he had worked in a secret facility nearby Area 51. He said that he had worked on technology that wouldn't have been possible for humans to have achieved at the time. This just further spread the theory that there was something secret going on at the base, but there was no evidence to back up his claims. However, he is not the only person to have claimed stuff like this over the years. Another theory dating back years is that items from the Roswell crash was actually taken to the base. In 1947, an object crashed in New Mexico that the military later revealed was a weather balloon. Conspiracists have believed for a while that it was actually an alien spacecraft, with some alleged eyewitnesses claiming to have seen strange metal debris and also bodies that did not look to be human. It's believed that the military covered up the extraterrestrial crash and used the technology that they found to build things like the stealth bomber and also drones. But again, with no real evidence to back this up, it's all just theories. It is a fact though that there are a lot of UFO sightings around the area of the base. There are reports of glowing lights in the night sky, fast moving aircrafts, and other aerial anomalies. And although some people argue that this this is direct evidence of alien spacecrafts, others argue that this is actually just untested military technology that we don't yet know exists. And that's not entirely out of the realm of possibility, because who knows what the government are working on. And the government are kind of responsible for this theory spreading far and wide for decades, because they refused to acknowledge the existence of the base for ages. They only officially recognised it in 2013, which was a red flag for conspiracy theorists, but at the same time I can kind of understand, because you don't really want your enemies to know where you're testing your classified technology. At the end of the day, we'll likely never know what's inside. People are still clearly interested, especially because of things like the Storm Area 51 event in 2019. But for now, we'll just have to accept that the contents of the classified military base remain a mystery. 2011 Engineered Earthquakes. Based on previous theories, such as the tsunami weapons, some people believe that earthquakes are also engineered by the government or secret organizations. There are claims that the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, also known as HAARP, is actually used to create earthquakes. Really, it is used to study how the ionosphere reacts to changing conditions, but it is instead believed by theorists that it is used to change the weather and also to trigger natural disasters. It has been blamed for many earthquakes over the course of 2 decades, but there has been no evidence to back up that HAARP is anything other than what it actually claims to be. But similar to what people claimed about the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, it's thought by some that underground nuclear explosions are responsible for some of the biggest earthquakes. It has been proven that underground nuclear tests can actually cause seismic activity, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. But the idea that the government actively uses it to create devastating earthquakes on countries is the conspiracy part of it all. People who believe these theories note that in some cases there has been reports of strange activities before major earthquakes. For example, bright flashes in the sky or radio interference. This has sparked the idea in many people's minds that something is up. There is also some debate, again similar to the tsunami thing, that earthquakes are used almost as a political weapon. Some countries have been hit by earthquakes after they make a political decision that Western countries may not agree with. So this has led people to believe that these earthquakes are far too convenient to benefit the Western countries. But there is still no solid evidence that human technology can actually cause earthquakes, apart from nuclear explosions. Additionally, there is no proof that the government owns any sort of earthquake weapon, but to be honest, it would not surprise me if this is something that they've tried creating in the past. If they do exist, it will be top secret, but I do believe that they've tried experimenting with quakes in the past. But as for if they're directly responsible for destruction across the world, I'm not sure. But let me know what you think in the comments. 2012, the world ended. Remember the doomsday that was meant to happen in 2012? Well, some people believe that it actually did happen. The theory that the world was going to end in 2012 came around when it was discovered that an ancient calendar had the final date as December 21st, 2012. People took this as a prediction of the end of the world, but others argued that it was simply misinterpreted. Of course, the world didn't end, but what if it did? Just in a way that no one expected. After 2012, people have claimed that they've started to notice more Mandela effects. Theorists have also said that the world seems off since the apparent apocalypse, leading people to think that we're actually living in a simulation. The rise of realistic deepfakes and also AI, and just the general instability of politics and other things also have people thinking that we're living in a simulated reality. It's like the history that we are living through is actively being manipulated, so the universe may have ended. We may be living in VR right now, but what do you think? 2013, Lizard People. One of the most infamous conspiracy theories of all time is that the world is secretly run by shape-shifting reptilian creatures. People think that humanity is secretly being controlled by reptiles who have been living underground for thousands of years. They can apparently shapeshift into humans, and this is how they've managed to get away with it for so long. They disguise themselves as world leaders, and some of the people thought to be hiding as reptiles include Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and celebrities like Justin Bieber. Some people think that we also actually have proof of this because they have apparently seen their true form on camera. Things like their eyes turning into slits for a split second like reptiles do, or their skin turning scaly. And how do they keep this up for so long? Well, theorists think that the royal family of Britain and political figures in America have kept their power through bloodline control, making sure that their reptilian DNA is passed down. But as much as people would love to believe this, the evidence against it is also just as strong. The apparent glimpses of it being caught on camera is probably just the result of low quality footage and other camera distortions that could cause the illusion of something being up with them. And of course, the shape-shifting aspect of it defies any sort of science. It has been proven that it is not possible for us to do such a thing, especially not that far back in history. So this is likely a hoax that took on a life of its own, but it's certainly an interesting conspiracy. 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight disappearance. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 would disappear. It was en route to Beijing, and less than an hour after it took to the skies with more than 200 people on board, it disappeared from the radars of ground control. To this day, it has never been found. The official story goes that after it disappeared from ground control radars, it flew over the Indian Ocean for hours before eventually running out of fuel. As a result, it's assumed that the plane then crashed into the sea, with possible debris from the crash washing up on islands like Madagascar. But despite over a decade passing, no black box or any bodies from any of the passengers have ever been recovered. There are conspiracies about the disappearance of the flight. One of the craziest is that it was abducted by aliens, with some people believing that because of the fact that it didn't send out any distress signals and because of how quickly it actually disappeared. Another choice for the tinfoil hat theorists is that it was accidentally shot down by military, either the USA or China. The sudden disappearance from radars, the lack of contact, all of that seems to add up for them. If it were true though, you'd think that more debris would have showed up even if the government had tried to cover it up. But to this day, a very small amount has. And as it turns out, the truth may have been more grounded. In the initial FBI investigation and in other independent searches, people have come to the conclusion that the pilot, a man called Zahari Ahmad Shah, planned to take his own life and take everyone on the plane with him. In his home, he had a flight simulator, and data recovered from the simulator revealed that someone, possibly him, had plotted a flight path over the Indian Ocean, specifically over the southern Indian Ocean, where MH370 is said to have crashed. But the idea that he did plot a crisis like this is also just a theory, and nothing has ever been confirmed. All we really know is that before the disappearance, he told ground control good night before shutting off the comms. The flight was also flying erratically before it crashed, but there could be many reasons for this. With so much evidence still not having come to light and no black box being recovered, we really don't know much, but hopefully one day we'll know the truth. What do you think really happened to flight MH370? 2015 CERN rituals. The European Organisation for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN, was struck by many conspiracies in 2015 and 2016, when a video of what was apparently going on inside of their buildings leaked. The video showed a satanic ritual taking place inside of a CERN building. It garnered a lot of attention all over the world in August 2016, and it showed several people in black robes surrounding a statue, and allegedly performing what seemed to be a human sacrifice. There were already theories that CERN were going to use their largest particle accelerator to open a portal to literal hell, or use it to destroy the entire universe for Satan's bidding. So this certainly didn't help matters. CERN quickly spoke out and said that the video was a prank, and that it didn't actually do this. They said that the actions were outside of their professional guidelines, and that whoever recorded it did so without official permission. They started a search for whoever was behind it because in order to get access to the building shown in the video, you would have need to have been an employee or a trusted scientist. They never revealed if they did actually find out who was behind it, but if they did, you can imagine that it would have been dealt with in private. Maybe they even sent the perpetrator directly to hell, depending on what you want to believe. 2016. Pizzagate. Pizzagate is a very infamous conspiracy theory that is still around to this day. It first started to explode in popularity in 2016, just before the US presidential election where Hillary Clinton faced Donald Trump. It started when emails from Hillary's campaign chairman were leaked, and some people thought they contained blatant code that could be linked to the exploitation of children. For example, in one email he says, "Do you think I'll do better playing dominoes on cheese than on pasta?" And some people seem to think that this was actually code for trafficking. In another email, he states that Barack Obama spent $65,000 flying pizza and hot dogs out to the White House, all for a private party. People suspected that rather than referring to food, it was actually referring to kids. The likelihood is that this was just some weird phrasing or an inside joke. Some of the wording is very weird, but I'm sure that we've all got some strange things in our friend groups that if anyone outside of them heard us talking about it, they would also think we're weirdos. And to the people who think it's weird that Obama would spend that much on food, if I were president, I'd spend double that on food just for myself, never mind for a party. But the reason that the conspiracy was dubbed Pizzagate is because theorists thought that it was being run out of a pizza shop. The shop was called Comet Ping Pong, and the owner had ties to Democratic politicians. People claimed that kids were being taken advantage of in the basement of the pizzeria, but as it turned out, there wasn't even a basement. In addition, it was looked at and there was never any evidence to back up the theory. It did almost ruin the business though, so it just goes to show how dangerous conspiracies like this can really be. 2017. Antarctica is hiding something. We've already touched on Antarctica a bit in the flat earth theory, but there are even more theories about the place. We touched on the Antarctica Treaty that basically made the continent unexplorable. Some people think that because the treaty was signed by many countries, it's basically a sign that they are all hiding something over there. We basically don't even know what a lot of it looks like because a lot of the satellite images that we do have are in very low quality. This is because of the bright and basic snow, but some people theorize that this is because there is something that the government don't want you to see. Others think that, tying back to the flat earth theory, the reason we don't have any high quality satellite images is because that is where the edge of the earth is. So what is really going on in Antarctica? It's true that there have been some strange discoveries there. We've found underground lakes, massive unexplained holes, and even a waterfall whose water looks like blood. As for alien activity or military secrets though, we don't really know much, and it still remains as one of the most mysterious places on Earth. 2018. 5G towers are used for mind control. 5G is the latest evolution of mobile data, and although it gives you faster speeds, some people think that it may actually be used to control your brain. Because of how it works, 5G requires many more data towers than any other previous generation. The sheer quantity of them had theorists going mad, trying to figure out if this was some sinister plot happening right under our noses. 5G operates on high frequency waves, which some theorists think could be used to alter our brains and make us do as the government wants. They are apparently using these towers to suppress our thoughts, but could even go as far as to trigger worldwide aggression or even anxiety. But if it's not controlling our minds, then others are convinced that it's actually being used to track us. Because everything is connected nowadays, there is a genuine fear in conspiracy circles that 5G is a plot to survey us 24/7. But again, this is probably just an example of people mistrusting the government and trying to blame unexplainable and concerning events on something. We'll probably see this outrage again when 6G eventually comes out, but for now, we're stuck with this debate. Do you think 5G is controlling your mind, or is it really harmless? Let me know in the comments. 2019. Epstein didn't kill himself. We're finally reaching a theory on this list that I wholeheartedly believe. Epstein didn't himself. The notorious was found dead by in his jail cell on August 10th, 2019. This came a few months after he was arrested on crimes related to children, and things were strange because the facility he was in was very high security and very well monitored. A few days after he was taken into custody, he was found injured in his cell, with marks on his neck which authorities described as signs of a attempt. This already seemed weird at the time, but when he did die in August, it was even even stranger because he was found hanging from his bunk by bed sheets. An autopsy revealed that he had certain broken bones in his neck that indicated strangulation rather than hanging, and other injuries that he had suffered were more indicative of a homicide rather than a... And as I said, this was a very well monitored facility. They had cameras everywhere, but apparently the two prison guards who had been specifically assigned to watch Epstein, this very high profile criminal, had just happened to fall asleep and didn't check on him for hours. In addition to this, the security cameras in his cell just so happened to malfunction at the time. You know, as they do in a high security prison. So there was absolutely no footage of him taking his own life. The guards also later admitted to falsifying records and also lying about checking on him that night. This all seems very coordinated and too much of a coincidence to actually be one. It kept getting stranger the more you dug into the rabbit hole as well, because as it turned out, he was on watch just a few days before he eventually died. He had been under 24/7 surveillance when he was mysteriously taken off of watch a few days prior to his death. Why would such a high-profile criminal with so much dirt on the elites of the world be magically taken off watch, especially when he had already tried to take his own life? And that's another point. He had so much dirt on people. People like the current president of America had previously partied with him, and other people had allegedly travelled to his private island, where it is said that they held illegal sex parties with kids. Most theorists believe that he knew too much and that he was dealt with. People took him out before he could prove to be a threat to any other elites. And I struggle to believe anything else. But maybe that's just me putting my tinfoil hat on. But what do you think of this theory? Let me know in the comments. Do you think that Epstein was killed, or do you think that he did actually take his own life? 2020, the pandemic was engineered. The recent pandemic has so many conspiracies about it, but when it first came to light and people were all put into lockdown, citizens started to put their tinfoil hats on, and some thought that it was actually purposeful. Some chose to follow the idea that it was actually released by China in an attempt to destabilize the economies of other countries, but others thought that it may have actually been released by Western countries in order to control us. They justified the second one by saying that lockdown was a test to see how far we would all go to obey, and some people even continued to go outside as some form of disobedience. There was no clear evidence of this, and even if it was used as a bioweapon, the chances are that countries could come up with a much better disease than this. There is a chance that this could have leaked from a lab in China that had been experimenting with the virus, but even then, that could still have been an accident. Not everything needs to be an elaborate plot for world domination, but I suppose you can't convince everyone. 2021, the vaccine is dangerous. And following directly on from that, when the vaccine was eventually rolled out around the world, some people were convinced that it was incredibly dangerous. While it's true that the vaccine was rushed and the longest clinical test only lasted for a couple of months, it was still tested and no safety precautions were skipped. At this point, billions of doses have been given out all around the world and extreme side effects are still extremely rare. Different theories state that the ingredients used in the vaccine actually alter our DNA, but if you don't believe that, then you may instead think that the vaccine is being used for population control. It's crazy the number of conspiracy theories there are about the vaccine even to this day, and I could literally be here all night listing them off. But I'll save you the pain because I'm sure you've heard them all already. There are legitimate concerns about the side effects and other things, but I don't think it's directly dangerous, nor a government-designed bioweapon. But speaking of bioweapons, that brings me on to 2022, US-funded bioweapons. Some theories state that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was sparked because they caught wind of the US funding bioweapon production inside of the country. It's true that they have funded research facilities, but they stand by that they were not for weapon development. Russia have spread a lot of misinformation over the years in an attempt to justify the war, and I'm not going to touch on this one for too long because it is still an ongoing topic, and I don't want to be disrespectful by giving any sort of platform to a harmful conspiracy theory like this one. The likelihood is that this is nothing but false information to try and justify a wrongful invasion, and although there may have been US funds involved, it's always been for peaceful reasons. 2023. Taylor Swift is a government puppet. Bit of a more light-hearted one now. Taylor Swift is one of the most popular artists in the world, but some people are convinced that she is actually being controlled by the government. This comes from her endorsing candidates like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and considering that she has a young audience, the other side believes that her endorsements are actually well-planned attempts to convince her audience who to vote for. Some have even argued that her entire rise to popularity has been fabricated. The idea is that she has been helped by powerful figures not only in the government but also in the media industry, and that she is actually an ongoing study as to how stars can be used to control the public opinion. This one's quite funny because it's just not true. It would be hilarious if it turned out that Taylor was actually working with the government though, but for now it's safe to say that she is just a regular woman with a lot of money and regular voting opinions. 2024. AI is already taking over. We've seen the rise of AI technology become rapid over the last few years, and people think that we're witnessing AI take over the world before our very eyes. The evidence to back this up is that every day new AI technology is being introduced into the world. This can predict political results, predict the stock market, and even influence what we see on social media. It's almost as if we humans aren't making any decisions, but are rather following the word of a robot. It's also taking over some jobs already, and people are creating whole internet careers using AI. Through ChatGPT and video generation programs, people don't need any sort of creativity anymore. Some of these channels have even popped up in this niche, and although AI is off-putting for a lot of people, others don't care. But at the end of the day, AI is just a tool used by humans. It can process faster than us, but it can't actually think for itself. It's not sentient, and hopefully we will never see the day where it is. We still control AI, and although it is an advanced tool, we still make the final decisions. But do you think it's taking over day by day, or is this simply an overreaction to technological advancements? Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, I really appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share the video, do all of that good stuff. Sharing it with your friends is really appreciated. Get the Jessicur word out there. Let me know if you have ever believed any of these conspiracies, or if you think that I missed any that should have been included in this list. And reminder to follow me on social media. I've got Instagram and Blue Sky, make sure to follow me. And of course, thank you to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members: Brooke, Entrepreneur, Maury Gann, K4 Silver, Alex Rod, Based Finger, Carmilla, Tango Slime, and Shoska. I'll be back on Friday with another video, but if you don't want to wait, YouTube thinks you'll like the video on screen right now, so make sure to check it out.